Once upon a time, there was a ferryman who worked along a stretch of a river. There were several villages and towns on both sides of the river. So he had steady business taking passengers from one side to other. Over the years, this brought him into contact with all kinds of people. One day, a villager approached the ferryman and said, "Sir, I have a question to you. I think you must be familiar with the villages across the river because you have gone back and forth so many times. Can you tell me about the people on the other side? I am thinking about moving there." The ferryman got curious and said, "Why are you thinking about moving? Is there something wrong with your village?" "My village is horrible," the villager said with disappointment. "I am surrounded by the worst people you can imagine, so I don't want to live there any longer. My neighbors are noisy when I need quiet. They don't care about the streets being dirty. They have no respect for me, therefore, I have no respect for them." "That does sound horrible," the ferryman sympathized. He further asked, "Have you ever let them know how do you feel?" "Oh, absolutely," the villager said with anger. "I give them unmistakable signs. They disturb me during the day, so I make noise to disturb them at night. They never clean the streets, so I throw my trash out the door to teach them a lesson. Whenever they are rude to me, I am rude to them twice as much. Of course, they know how I feel." The ferryman nodded and said, "I see. Well, I have a bad news for you. The people on the other side of the river are not so different from the ones in your village. You will find all the things you dislike about your neighbors quite prevalent there too. If you decide to move, you will spend a lot of time and effort only to end up in the same situation." "I knew it," the villager exclaimed in frustration and started walking away, saying, "There must be a better place somewhere. I will find it." Later that day, another young man approached the ferryman and said, "Sir, I see you ferry people to and from the other side of the river every day. So I am wondering if you can tell me a little about them. I am thinking about moving over there." Ferryman again got curious and said, "Why are you thinking about moving there?" Then the young man said, "I would like to study spiritual teachings with a sage who lives on the other side. If I move closer to him, I can save a lot of time crossing back and forth. However, I am a little reluctant to leave my home over here." "Why the reluctance?" the ferryman asked. Then the man replied, "My village is a wonderful place to live. I have the best neighbors. Everyone is kind and considerate, and we always look out for one another. Everyone works to keep the neighborhood clean and make it a pleasant environment. There is a mutual assistance and respect, and that is why I am reluctant to leave. I am not just sure if I can find such great neighbors when I am on the other side of the river." Then the ferryman nodded and said, "Well, I have a good news for you. The people on the other side are not much different from the ones in your village. You will find all the qualities you like about your neighbors. If you do decide to move, it won't take you long to become part of a community in the new place that you will enjoy." The young man was happy to hear that. He thanked the ferryman before heading back to home. A nearby street vendor, who had been watching everything quietly, came over as the young man left. He said to the ferryman, "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation, and also the similar conversation you had earlier. I know those two fellows. They came from the same village, and both of them asked the same question. Why did you give them such different answers?" Then the ferryman said, "The difference came from them, not from me or the place. The first villager is unaware that all the things he hates originate from within himself. The noisy disturbance, the dirty environment, and the lack of respect, and so on. His environment reflects his attitude. Unless he changes himself, he will not continue to recreate the same negative settings, no matter where he goes. The ferryman further said, it was similar with the young man. He may not realize it, but all the things he enjoys about his neighborhood also originate from his giving and positive nature. The kindness, the consideration, and the mutual assistance and respect. As long as he does not change, he will always create the same positive settings no matter where he goes. Oh, I see. The street vendor smiled in comprehension and said, so things are not necessarily better on the other side. No, said the ferryman, but things definitely get better on every side when they get better on the inside. This story gives a very real reflection of our life. Most of the time, we have also this tendency that we blame outer world. We blame others for our own misery. But the problem is, we always forget that our outer world is the reflection of our inner world. I am not saying that everything that is happening around is created by us, but how we are reacting to the situations is most of the time in our control. How do we see the world? How do we perceive the world and the situation? It's mostly in our control. And if something is in our control, we should try to make it better and better, so that at least those things should not affect our life in wrong sense. Hope you enjoyed this story. You may also find this story interesting. See you in the next video. Till then, stay healthy, stay happy. Peace.